much more about how do I do it for longevity? How do I exercise for and be in movement for the long term? How do I keep going so that I can feel good? How do I have vitality? And at the base for every single human is we need to have health. And the performance angle, if one wishes to go there in their sport, it still has to have health, whether you're at the top of the podium or somebody who just wants to, go out and have fun because it feels good. We all have to come at the same foundation, for which sleep is part of one of the health fundamentals that I have. Yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Sleep Like a Boss podcast. I'm Annika Carroll and I'm super excited that you're here today because we are going to talk about movement and how to move well through perimenopause and beyond. And I have an expert for this on the show today, Tenille Hoogland. Welcome so much to the show.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you.
So fun. I'm ready to dig in.
You're ready to dig in.
Let's do this. Yeah.
Yes.
Let's get people moving into this whole conversation.
Yes. And maybe we can start by you maybe introducing yourself. Tell us a little bit about your personal story, what you do and how you ended up doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Cool. I'd love to share that. My story, I'll skip I'll go through a couple decades really quickly. Because they're relevant, but not so we don't need to get into the details. So as a young person, I grew up in Calgary and I was a synchronized swimmer and I had a dream of going to the Olympics. And that dream took me as far as moving out of my house when I was 16 and at that time I had moved to Vancouver, leaving my family and moving back to Calgary to train. And then my career ended. As a synchronized swimmer, my goals ended. It didn't go so well for me. And so switch gears, go to university. My undergrad came and went. And I started, as an active travel guide. So this bike thing started. I was like, oh, biking, that's fun. So, always had a lot of activity within my life, even going through my undergrad, but nothing in a serious pursuit. And then I started my master's at Queen's University, and I started, getting into this biking thing. And I always kind of ran. I never really ran. It was always hard. I was like, this running thing is so hard, So, I just started dabbling a bit more. And I finished my master's of public administration, and I ended up living in Ottawa at this time now. And in Ottawa, I joined a club and I started getting really into, swim, bike, run. It was now a triathlon. I was like, oh, okay, I can do this triathlon thing. Well, I didn't realize. So now I'm at the ripe old age of 27 and still with an Olympic dream. No one was going to tell me that I wasn't going to go after my dream. So I started training really seriously. And, fast forward, I was working for the federal government, working for the Olympic and Paralympic Winter Games Federal Secretariat. Started, it was all about the dream. It was 2010. It was just all the energy. And I was like, I've got to do this. This is one time in my life. I moved into the elite ranks. I started racing at the elite level. Just worked really hard. And I moved I left my job. I took a leave from the federal government, left my job and started training seriously in Austin, Texas. I became a professional athlete is what I did. I sold everything I owned and I just packed my bags, packed my car. And there I was in my Honda driving down to Austin, Texas. And the difference there was I was a bit older. I had made some money so I could finance this, little idea that I had a little bit differently than I was when I was 16 years old and trying to make it on, working a retail job. And circumstances were different, except for they weren't really. And what the weren't really were is I didn't have all the pieces that I now have to understand how it is to be in health, to be honest. When you start to really push your body and add on more stress and more stress and more stress, albeit all focused in one stress area, which is not typical for most people. They have stress upon stress upon stress, but it's from a myriad. So there's not, I mean, there's a lot of similarities there, but mine was focused all in one basket. And so then I came into injury. I came into challenges with my hormones. It wasn't eating, quite frankly, I had disordered eating. Like I was just so undernourished. But I'm in a sport of power to weight. So it was all about getting thinner, getting thinner, getting thinner. And I was really good at control, and I was really good at, staying so disciplined, and that strength was also my big weakness. And so I did very well. And I also left the sport a number of years later. So I did it from 27 till I think 32 or something. And I was just not motivated at the end. I didn't have the passion anymore. I was injured all the time. I was so beaten down. And I also felt like I kind of needed to start life again. I was like, okay, did this professional athlete thing, then like, let's move forward. And so I went back. And through all this time, I started getting myself educated, both in nutrition, which I found was really limited in the understanding, and in traditional nutrition. And nutrition has changed so much. I mean, we used to not be able to eat fat, right? Like, I don't know if everybody remembers, you're not supposed to eat fat. Well, we're beyond that now. Then, we've gone through so many fads, and athletes aren't, I wasn't immune to that whole business of nutrition as either. And so I came into a lot of health challenges, as well as I was trying to have, I had met my husband and we wanted to have children, and I had fertility challenges. And then I started learning about hormones and understanding. And now by this time I'm 40, right? So I have two young children. I'm now in my mid 40s, and I really went through such challenge with my hormones, and now and early perimenopause, and noticing changes again in my hormones. But I wanted to become equipped. I was like, we have got to start understanding our bodies as female athletes, as females generally, so that we can have health as the foundation of our performance. And I think that was the biggest thing, and where I come to the work that I am doing today is saying, these goals that we can have, or these performance things that we want, you'll never get there. Like right now, for me, I'm not interested in the Olympics anymore. So I'm not going to quit my job and, sell everything I own and go after it. And so it's so much more about, how do I do it for longevity? How do I exercise for and be in movement for the long term? How do I keep going so that I can feel good? How do I have vitality? And at the base for every single human is, we need to have health. And the performance angle, if one wishes to go there in their sport, it still has to have health, whether you're at the top of the podium, or somebody who just wants to, go out and have fun because it feels good. We all have to come at the same foundation, for which sleep is part of one of the health fundamentals that I have. Yeah.
Wow, it's quite the story. Like, that commitment that you put in there was it was a big dream, I guess, if you're that dedicated to pack up and go. And
yeah, I think what it was for me is, I felt like I didn't understand how. I wanted to know how good I could be. I wanted to know how far I could push myself. I don't know what that is. I don't know that inside fire. I think people find it in like, if you think about anybody, the listener, like, what is that fire burning for you? It may not be in sport, but what is that? Now I've transferred the fire into my business, and wanting to support women and females to be in their best health and achieve what it is that is their personal best. That's where I'm at now. And like, there's a fire that burns inside of me to do it, because of the pain that I had, and because of the challenges that I had. And I really want, yeah, women to know that we can do it differently.
And that's great. And where do you think, like, how does movement, exercise, fitness, how does that change for women going like from their 30s to their 40s through perimenopause and into menopause?
Yeah, it's such a good question. So I probably, it absolutely changes, but it changes all the time. So what I want to bring on to, and like, awareness, and I've said it a couple of times, is like, no matter where you are, whether you are a teenager, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, is that we have these health fundamentals that we always need to be taking care of, period. Now, when we're going through these different age, like reproductive years versus our perimenopausal years, or changing in these life stages, things do change that we need to be aware of. That change both the health fundamentals, but also, which I'm thinking, sleep, gut health, breathing. Like the breathing, it's so important. It's like, we all think it's so obvious, but it doesn't get so obvious when you actually start thinking about your pelvic floor, for example, is part of that, is what I'm thinking about. And the functional movement, range of motion, how we have balance, stability. If you think of yourself as a 20-year-old versus a 30-year-old versus a 40-year-old, that's just age happening. So those fundamentals that we have to continuously come into, right? So that's the base, that's the foundation of your house, if you will, to be then able to start decorating. So the decorations are, okay, how can I start adding more intensity, or how do I get a little faster, or how do I in the sport world, then you can go into you looking at people going, oh, look at that bike, it's way lighter. That's like, if you're decorating a house, that's like putting the final touch on something. It has nothing to do with movement. Like, it's not about getting the fundamentals. It's not about, and movement is part of your fundamental framework. It's the foundation of your house, and all the other pieces. What do you need to eat during training? Those are details that, yes, become very important as you go up into, I want to do it more, I want to go harder, and this will be very important for the athlete in perimenopause, is that I want to maintain my strength. So those details become more and more important to keep that foundation strong. And so,
is that because, like, if we're just picking that example, is that because we have the changes in hormones, we have changes in metabolism, like we just all become almost pre-diabetic to it, like our muscle mass decreases, and so if I want to maintain strength, as an athlete, I'm already probably at a higher level, but even if I'm like somebody who's maybe exercised all their life, but we would even notice that in perimenopause, that we're starting to lose strength if we don't focus on that specifically, right?
Like, I think that as we get into our late 30s, and okay, honestly, I think that we should be thinking about these things when we're in our 20s, and starting to learn and really about strength training and building up that foundation and understanding, how does movement feel? I mean, thinking we don't live the same life that we used to decades. I'm talking about maybe in the 30s, or 40s. There was so much activity and manual labor. Now we sit at desks, and so getting into the gym, that's going to be a way in which we start working more towards strength. It doesn't have to be there, certainly not. But for within our culture that we live in now, that's why people go to the gym, because it's an easier way to access instead of picking up heavy things, although that is possible. So as our estrogen lowers, we definitely start to see a muscle mass decrease. So how do we stimulate that muscle? We need to lift heavy things. We need to ensure that we have protein so that we can keep that beautiful, precious muscle that we work so hard to have, and we don't lose it so quickly. I mean, those are just to start. And why does our metabolism start to decrease? Well, again, in part, it's the changes in your hormones, but it's also to do with your muscle mass, right? So we really, it becomes very intentional. If we want to stay strong and we want to keep moving, we have to get intentional. Whether you consider yourself an athlete, or whether you consider yourself a mover, or you consider yourself athletic, whatever identity you have around your movement practice, I encourage you to consider is like, how am I going to stay strong? How do think about your grip strength? Mm-hmm. Think about how you are going to lift things. And if we stop doing it because we're becoming, we're slowing down, we will stop having it.
Period. I think that's so important. And you know what? And I see this so much in my mom. I see it in my parents-in-law who are towards 80 and they're in phenomenal shape. Yeah. Generally, there's not much ailments. There's not a lot of medication or anything going on. They're really mobile. Yeah. And stuff. But what you see, and I see it in my mom too, and my mom is, and she's okay with me saying that, she is not she has not looked after her health from a physical perspective. Yeah. But they are all thin. And you can see it now. And there was a certain point in their lives where they were fit, but all of a sudden you can really see the muscle is gone. And they're just like the skeletal muscle is not there anymore. And they're still mobile and flexible and do yoga and go swimming and do all the things. But there is nothing there. And then I sometimes worry, it's like, the one is the slip and fall. Being in Canada and there being ice 6 months of the year, you're like, no, don't break anything. Yeah. Or even if you just get sick, right? There's no substance. And it's just like a 2-3 week cold, right? If it hits you, it hits you. And there's just no substance. And that might be years out. They're 2-3 decades down. But it doesn't also, it's going to get harder for us to build it in our 40s than it was in our 20s. But we got to, like you said, we got to start somewhere to end up in a good space, right?
Well, and this is building the resilience of your body, right? So when we think about, if any of the listeners are remember when you were 40, if you're 50 now, you're just oh, and you're talking to the 40-year-old, you're just oh, you just wait. And then if you're the 40, then you look at the 30-year-old and you're, oh, just wait. Mm-hmm. And so we think about these things, but we have a harder time thinking about, okay, so when I'm 60 and just starting to learn how to do a press or a squat, what I want to encourage people to learn about their bodies and start bringing into their functional movement every day is how to squat, how to hold their bodies, how to think about their pelvic floor, how to do the press. Because you're right, it depends, I want to have the best last decade of my life. I don't know when that decade is going to come. Yeah. I have no idea. But boy, do I ever want to be able to, I'm doing everything a little bit later, right? So my kids are right now 4 and 6. Okay, I'm 45 and they're 4 and 6. My 6-year-old can already bike faster than me in some cases. I can hands down, I got him on endurance. Thank goodness. But speed is going to be an issue. So, I want to be able to play with him. Mm-hmm. In 5 years, in 10 years. I want to go do stuff. I want to be able to, hopefully he won't wait as long as I did to have kids, because that's going to be a situation. I'll be 80 by the time he starts. But you know, I want to, you know, it's I'm thinking long term, and what do I need to do today? Both, you know, we are talking a lot about strength, but the heart too, it matters. So we have something, a metric called VO2 max, the volume of oxygen you can take in, and that matters. Like, if you want to think about yourself walking upstairs when you're 70, that VO2 actually matters. That VO2 max matters, and being able to actually get your heart. Like, if it's hard now, just imagine in 20 years what you're going to be doing.
Yes.
And where is life happening? I guess that would be the next question. Where is your life actually happening? Is it, you know, I just remember my granny's final years of her life, they were pretty isolated.
Mm-hmm.
She was confined to her chair. And it was pretty lonely, and it was pretty hard. And yes, she had family coming around, but life wasn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how I want to go. Or that's, you know, and maybe maybe that will be, I have no idea, but I'm certainly going to go and do everything I can to do what I can, period.
Absolutely. And what do you, maybe if I'm in my 40s now, which I am, I'm 46, what do you see women, like, if they're exercising now, they're working out, what do you see are like common mistakes where you're like, no, I think this is not right, and this might be driven by social media, by the internet, by whatever you see? What are a few things where you're like, no, that these are common mistakes that I see and that I would like?
Yeah. Lack of variability would be one.
That means like doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah. So they go out for their run, they have a routine, and that routine is beautiful. Like, it's gorgeous. You go out for your run, you get on the bike, you go to your spin class, and so you're working that hard. But the challenge of that is that you're not creating the guessing game. Like, coming back to your example of like falling, right? How do you catch yourself when you fall? Mm-hmm. It's by a lateral movement. So if all your movements are always going forward, you're not working those muscles in a lateral way. Mm-hmm. Right? So what I think is that you want to purposefully put yourself into the uncomfortable position of doing activities or doing intensities. Even variability of intensity is important, to keep it going. Like, we want to be able to keep our body guessing. It's like, oh, you thought this was hard, but I'll tell you what's hard. It's like, now we're going to apply the hard, or now we're going to rest, and this is how we move in our rest. This is how we recover. And so what I see, not only just in the way we move and like going in this like linear direction with my hands, it's also how hard we work. I mentioned intensity. So a lot of this, I see it so frequently, and this is the thing that I educate on, is like, okay, did that feel hard? And everybody's like, yeah, that was a really good workout. I'm just like, that's nowhere near your capacity. That's nowhere near what is possible for you to know what actually hard work is. So that hard work is called chronic stress. That hard work that most people sit in, that feels good in terms of an exercise or a movement application, like you're working hard, but not that hard, so you can keep going and doing it day after day after day. Well, think of yourself at a desk, and you are working constantly every day for 6 hours without stop, and you're just being really productive. You are just nailing it, boom, 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 and it just keeps on going. That's the kind of exercise that will bring our cortisol up. Mm-hmm. And I know you're an expert in this whole idea of like, what is that chronic stress? And for women in particular, that is one of the biggest challenges that we have. Because we're more susceptible to cortisol and that chronic stress piece. So Yeah. So what do? We all want, like, either we want a giver or we want to do recovery and stay out of that level of chronic stress. And yeah, unless, and because I always have to have my caveat, unless you're using it for a specific reason, which would be preparing for a race in which you are actually going to be at that level. Because then I want my athletes to be able to prepare, like, know what that feels like. So I think that there's that piece of it. But for, you know, being athletic or, you know, wanting to be in health, it's not going to give you much value other than, you know, that one time that it felt really good. So, you know, like, but we don't want to do that application all the time.
That sounds a bit like, because I think and I'm not an expert with that, but just looking at myself, I think the trick in all of this, it always is consistency to a degree, right? But like you said, we can't do this, like we shouldn't be doing, and we also cannot do the same amount and the same kind all the time. So there has to be that variability in type or form of workout.
For a muscular, for like,
and then just to make it really easy, could it be cardio, could it be strength training, just to make it like very, right? Like I want different types of challenges for the body. At different degrees of severity. So there might be days where I can do a longer run. But then I need to recover from that. And then maybe I'll focus on some stretching or some like mobility things or strength building or like a kind of like a mix and match. But I guess you'd ideally do that with somebody who kind of guides you a little, right?
Well, yeah. And so, you know, one of the things that I think is important in this. So, you know, as an athlete, I didn't know. I think that this is like, and this doesn't have to be an athletic thing, but like, do you know what your hormones are doing? Do you understand when you don't sleep very well?
Can we talk about that one? Yes.
Let's talk about sleep. Okay. So perimenopause. Okay. So what's happening? Well, let me tell you, most of the women that I'm working with don't sleep very well all the time, and it's not related, it's to perimenopause. You know, it's just a shift, and then some nights are great. Nope, this was another night. I woke up at 2 a.m, you know, like it just is like thing. And so what do you do with that? Well, we bring down the intensity. We have to respect the body.
Yes.
Right? We have to respect the body. And so, yes, get a guide, but the guide needs to empower the athlete or the person who is exercising so they can make good decisions on their training and how they approach their training. Because, you know, I'm not there every day. I mean, I'm there. I'm like on my computer. They can ping me. They can, you know, email me saying, oh, I had a bad sleep. What do I do? But I want to educate them so that we are just like, okay, really bad sleep. Doesn't mean necessarily don't do the workout, but it's like, we really have to come into how you're feeling. And that's perimenopause. There's so much fluctuation in hormones and how you feel and what you're dealing with. And that we have to be totally adapting and willing to let it go and going, I'm just going to be curious so we can keep pushing forward. And therein lies the conversation. And the conversation is guided at first. But what I want my athletes is to be darn smart and know, like, oh yeah, no, I am not going to do that today, but I got it for tomorrow. And if it's not tomorrow, then I know that like it will cycle through. And I think that there's an important point here, is that there's a motivation there. Like you can hear it with I don't often have to push people to do their workouts. I actually have to pull back to do their workouts. Right. So there's a difference if you don't find yourself motivated, and we can talk about that too. Like if you're finding yourself that you're just like, okay, who are these people? They're all like this gung ho, want to do exercise all the time. That's not me. Well, that wasn't me either. When I was as a professional athlete, I didn't know how to get out of my bed. Like, I didn't know how to get started again. Like, that's what I had lost. Like,
Wow.
I was so on the other side. I was like, I was broken down. I didn't know how to get going again. I didn't want to like tie up my running shoes anymore. Like, this is what I had to relearn after leaving sports, because I was so broken. I was already there and I was like, oh my goodness, dragging. I had a contract. I was a sponsored athlete. So yeah, I still had to show up. That was my job. I showed up, but it wasn't looking pretty. And at the end, and then I had to pull myself back together and learn how to love sport. And I think that that's the important part, is like, where are you coming at this? Because I speak to this from my the athletes that typically come to me are motivated. But we all have different places that we're coming from, and they're not always motivated and they're not always feeling good, but we need to figure out, okay, well, how do we get there? And you want me to keep going? I can talk about motivation.
Well, yeah. Well, maybe we can talk about that, because that is something that I think the one thing that I want to recap for people, because that is so important. This was just like a former professional athlete giving you permission to rest if you did not get good sleep. And I'm saying this because I have two kinds of clients. I have the clients who are completely burnt out and are like, I wish I could exercise, but because I'm not sleeping, I just can't even like, my body is just, I'm not even getting there. Right. So we start with small things like just walk. And then once we get you to feel better, it'll become easier. Right.
Yeah.
And then there are the people who are like, go, 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 ignoring all their sleep trackers, everything. It's like, no, if you don't score well, it doesn't mean you go and do 2 spinning classes that night. That is what the thing is trying to tell you. So that is exactly that, where you as an athlete says, no, listen to your body, learn to interpret the signals, and when it needs rest, give it rest. And rest can be active, right? It doesn't need to be Netflix binging on the couch. It can still be, I'm making this up now, and you can give better examples, a yoga class or some stretching or some lightweight training or
movement, just movement.
Yeah, or ride your bike around the block if you want, right? Just get the body up and going.
You want to think about, like your blood moving. That's what you want. Lymph moving. Like, you want things moving in your body to bring in healing. Because what heals, right? Like, what is healing? What is, if we're really inflamed, or if we're really stressed, like if we think about stress, just how do we bring down our stress? We bring down our stress by breathing in through the nose, like deep breaths, and exhaling long. Okay, so now you've got the oxygen. How's the oxygen going to move? By your blood. How do you get your blood moving? By your heart pumping, right? We don't, and so just to re-emphasize the point, there's a real difference between chronic stress, and I think that that's the point that you're trying to make here, is that stress in and of itself is not bad, right? So I have a stress ID, right? So it's the stress upon stress upon stress, and that chronic stress is called strain, actually. So then we have this massive amount of strain, and we're trying to manage strain. When you're strained, no, you've got to remove the stress. And maybe that stress is, at this point, going to be the high intensity cardiovascular session that happens to be at the spin gym or whatever, right? Because we got to lighten it up. If it's not going to be your work, and if it's not going to be your family, because those things you have to show up for, we've got to figure out how we're going to bring back that resilience and that stress level, so you're actually managing it again. Because right now it's called chronic stress is really strain, and you're strained and you're not managing it. And so you got to lighten the load for sure.
Awesome. Okay, and let's dive into motivation. See, I'm like one of these people, and I'm sure people can relate to that. I can be highly motivated to start, and I feel the benefits. Like, I'm feeling good energy, and then life happens. Something gets in the way of my schedule that I have nicely mapped out, my 3 workouts a week. It's all going, and then, work comes in the way, and I kind of like, I put the priority wrong. I put it on work, and then the workout is like, oh yeah, I'll catch up tomorrow. Of course I don't. And then comes Wednesday. Okay, now I really need to get the workout in. And sometimes it works, but often it's like,
Yeah.
how, when I fall off the wagon, how do I get back on?
Right. So you let go that you fell off the wagon. Number one, it's the past. It's done. Right.
Yeah.
So like eliminate all the self-talk that, oh, here I go again, just another failed attempt. Yada, yada, yada. Like just, you don't even, it's not worth your energy to think about the past like that. It's like, okay, so what is it that I'm going to create for going forward? Okay, so why is it that I fell off like, get curious, first of all. Was it that I actually just got bored? Was it work? Like you gave an example. Was it family? So if it's one of those things, is it, this is, the work of Dr. Michelle Seeger. So she talks about traps. So temptation, rebellion, accommodation, and perfectionism. So is there something in one of those? So temptation is like, you're walking by the ice cream and store and you always go in and get it, like, or as I just can't help myself to do X, and so it's causing you to fall off their thing. Rebellion is that somebody is telling you to do it. My coach told me to do this, therefore I have to do it. But you know what? I'm tired of people telling me what to do. So even though it's something I signed up for and I want to do, I don't want to be told what to do anymore because everybody's telling me what to do. Mm-hmm. Accommodation is the next one. This is very common for work. So I am an accommodator. I know that in my challenge is if I don't work out first thing in the morning, unless it's to go and meet a friend for a good hike, my afternoon sessions is I won't show up unless I have accountability to it, because my work will always win out. Mm-hmm. I'll just push it aside and be like, well, I really needed to finish that email, or I really needed to do that. Or I accommodate to the person who just calls me that I decided that I needed to answer the phone at that moment that I was just about to finish my day and go to do my workout. I'll accommodate. So if you're recognizing some of those patterns, then you need to start from like, where will I do it? The last one is perfectionism. So perfectionism is, see that hour workout. But you know what? A 20-minute, if you couldn't do that hour, but you could do a 20-minute walk around the block. If on your schedule you had thought that you were going to do a nice, beautiful run through, the trail that you love, and it was going to be about 45 minutes, and you accommodated, and then you are left with 20 minutes. 20 minutes is allowing yourself to stay in integrity to the purpose for which you set out for. And that is worth so much. To say, you know what? I only have 20 minutes. And I do this all the time, by the way. So how do I stay motivated? It's by allowing myself to do the 20-minute, workout snack. It's allowing me to not be perfect in how it looks. Because honestly, I'm not going to the Olympics. I do it for health. I do it because I like to feel that I've done something for my body. And so that's one way, though, is really understanding and investigating in those pieces. I think the other thing that you want to consider is what's fun.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, what's fun, and how do you get there? And if it's not going to be, what I love and what I coach for is cycling and running and swimming, either separately or all together. But if it's not one of those things, then what could be exciting for you? What could be getting your body moving, period? And getting that heart rate up. That's the question. And if movement just generally doesn't sound good to you, then I would encourage you. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, there's the amount that you need to get that heart rate up can be really small to have enormous health benefits. So go to the stairs and run up them 3 times, slow down, and you have done your body so much good, like so much good. So if it's for that reason that you're just like, not going to enjoy the movement at all, period, full stop, don't even, like, let's not go there, then figure out what's going to hold true for you, that that you'll stay in integrity. Say, you know what, I said that I'm going to be healthy because I want to see my grandson. I want to be able to pick him up when I'm 70. I want to be able to play, maybe not vigorously, but I want to be able to play. Like, what is that really solid thing that's in your mind that you can grasp onto and say, you know what, I set this goal for myself because I want to do that. And this is the thing that I'm going to do, and I'm going to stay in integrity with. I'm going to run up these stairs 3 times, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to be very short, but I'm going to do it. And you're so much further ahead.
Yeah, that's so true. And that was interesting when you were talking about like the limiting beliefs and the behaviors of that can keep us like, yeah, for me, it's exactly that. I think it's the accommodating perfectionist. It's is the 20 minutes worth it versus the 1 hour? Yes, it is. And if you do it, you feel so much better after, right?
My
It's
goodness.
just, yeah. And there is going to be a hard to a degree, right? It's either do it now, or the hard is going to be sitting in that chair while life's happening around you that you are not actively participating anymore in, or worse, right? Like there could be disease, there could be more mobility issues, there could be all kinds of things, right? I think that's so important to really, like for me, it's really that perfection piece, to get rid of that and to not beat yourself up about it and just go and do it.
Well, and so then the question is when you come into, and so you fall off the wagon. So the question is, okay, so what am I going to say to myself then the next time? Well, I'm going to say to myself, okay, I see this pattern. First, you acknowledge, and I have 3 steps in the work that I do: awareness, connection, and then take action. So you now become aware of this pattern that you have. It's like, every time I fall off the wagon, it's because I'm accommodating. And then you're right. So and I think that I have to have it this way. So what I'm going to take a look at, and again, this is the work of Dr. Michelle Seeger, and I'm going to take a look at, is that perfect, imperfect option. And so that's where we go. Because all, like, in the literature and the research, like all the, trying to do it right, and habit stack, and habits are really amazing, and we want to create the habit, but then when life happens, the habit will fall apart really quickly because you can't, something came in on the side, and the habit is like not possible. So then what? Because you always did it by habit stacking on that particular thing, but that thing fell off the bottom, and now you don't know what to stack it on.
Exactly.
Right. So we want to utilize habits for some things, or like you can use this in exercise as well. Habits are great for, like, for me, I just have a habit. Like I literally, how I do it is I'm a morning person. So I get up. I do not allow myself to think very much about what I'm going to do. I just do it. Like, I have the habit of getting up and doing my workout. So I have my habit. I wake up, I have my big glass of water. Actually, it's my tea that I warm. Anyways, I have a whole situation in which I have my omega-3s. I have all my vitamin D, and my magnesium, even though you're supposed to take it at night. If my habit is, if you leave it later, then I won't take it. So I just all up front. It doesn't matter. At least I'm taking it. And then I have my decaf coffee, because, little factoid, if you're crashing in the afternoon, You probably have told your people about the coffee, don't have it right, caffeinated beverage right when you wake up, let it, dissipate a little bit. So I have my decaf coffee and then I go and work out. I don't think. If I think about it, if I want to do it, it's 6 a.m. in the morning. Who wants to work out? It's a ridiculous hour to start these things. You don't think. That's my habit. Because otherwise, like I said, I'm an accommodator. It won't happen in the afternoon.
I totally agree. And I did something, I remember when I came out of my burnout the first time, and I started with yoga because that was all I could do. Like I started with literally laying there and listening to and then we did it. The one thing that helped me, my husband, because I go to bed earlier than him, he would put the yoga mat out in the living room for me at night. And I'm up early before him. So it was there. And I was like, right, the mat's there. So I'm going to go and do it. Because it was there. It was like, okay, it's right there. I don't even have to I don't have to think about it.
Yeah. So I'm just going to do my, whatever it is that I
work out, and then I'm done.
Yeah. And then I'm done. And so those are where habits become valuable. It's where, when the habits can be interrupted, that you want to really understand this other piece of it.
This is great. This has been so helpful. I'm just looking at my list of questions that I had for you. But I think we've covered so much. This is wonderful. And I think you have something you wanted to share with the audience. And I also wanted you to share where people can find you and the amazing work you do.
Oh, thank you so much. So you can find me at tenillehoogland.com. And so that's pretty simple. And the links will be there. If you are wondering, how do I balance strength and speed and endurance, then I have a free gift for you. So definitely take a look at that. And there's a lot of amazing things that are happening. I'm not exactly sure when this will air, but we have a summit going on with Annika and 24 other amazing experts if you're in perimenopause and beyond who want to catch that. And I've got an exciting program going out coming up. Like the next week, I'll be launching a trip, and that is going to happen in Oregon, and you can train for 6 months to be prepared for it, and train right, and train in health, and train with fantastic other women. So lots of things there.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Thank you so much. And we will put all the links in the show notes so everybody has all the info. Go check it out, and go check out the summit. It is great. It is not the first one you've done. There's lots in the past. They've been all very successful because you always have great speakers on. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you everybody for listening and watching. And we'll see you next time.